Live, and welcome to Facebook Live for So Can Sleep. And hopefully there's a few of you with questions, and please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll see those as they come in. But I'm going to start with some questions that have been asked already, and it's a bit of a murky day here in London, so I need to put my glasses on, I have to say. So the first one, how might my sleep be affected by the menopause? So just to introduce myself, really, I'm a holistic health practitioner, and I live in London, but I see clients from all over the world. So people message, and I might see them in Skype or currently Zoom, obviously, and occasionally on the phone. But I usually work in central London, and I've got a couple of practices there at Ainsworth's, which is a homeopathic pharmacy, and Try Yoga, which is obviously a yoga studio. And I've been working with health issues for 20 years. This is my 20th year as a homeopath and holistic health coach, and I've got a really wide variety of clients and complaints that come in. But one of the things that, as I've gone through menopause, that I've started to work with more is menopause. And so I've had, lots of people, lots of women ask me for support during menopause. And one of the biggest things I think that I've learned along the way is that the signs for menopause actually start a whole lot earlier than we're taught. That there are some 34 symptoms now associated with menopause, and I would add 3 or 4 more to that I regularly see. And of course this was something that our parents and mothers may not have gone through menopause to the same degree. So one of the things that I often talk about is the toxic timeline. And the reason that I'm kind of introducing that concept of the toxic timeline of the 20th and the 21st century is because we've been exposed to a lot more than our grandmas, and that has a massive effect on our hormones. So we have exposure to pesticides that mimic our hormones. We have a lot more exposure to synthetic hormones themselves, and that could have come through for us from our own choices about taking the pill, or perhaps women, especially younger women now, I find use things like the morning after pill quite a lot. We may have had eaten a lot of food with pesticides in, or eaten a lot of what are called phytoestrogens, which we get from things like soya, that mimic our hormones and mean that our hormonal picture can change from a very natural picture to one of complications. And complications that we might see are all the things that we know about, like polycystic ovaries or fibroids or endometriosis. And these kind of problems often start for women in their 30s. So we're seeing this kind of disorder in the menstrual cycle coming quite early. And the first indications around sleep that some women might experience is that their sleep gets poor before their period, or they feel unusually wakeful, or, as in my case actually, I used to find that I could drink more alcohol before my period and it wouldn't affect me. So my body would override the effects of the alcohol, and that was dangerous. But it was also a sign that my adrenal cortex was working hard to overcome what I was introducing into my system. And I would find it particularly before my periods, and I would also find I was just simply more wakeful. And that was a sign that when it comes to menopause, my sleep might be off. And there's all sorts of ways in which our sleep can be off. So often I ask women, how is your sleep? Is it difficulty falling asleep, or is it difficulty staying asleep? And that will show me a couple of different things. So if we have difficulties falling asleep, it's often a lack of magnesium. And nearly everybody I see, something like 80% of people anyway, and that's an old statistic, are lacking in magnesium. And magnesium helps relax muscle and soothe nerves, so that helps us drift into sleep. So an easy way to address that is to have an Epsom salt bath before bed. And if the idea of a warm bath doesn't really appeal because you're getting heated during menopause, then you can have a cooler bath, and that would help. Or you can use a spray. And the reason I say about using a spray or taking a bath is because we absorb the magnesium better through our skin. So not only might it be that we find it difficult to fall asleep, but we might find it difficult to stay asleep. And that shows me that our capacity to produce melatonin has been affected in some way. And it might be that we have to make a change, like we stop drinking coffee later in the day. So coffee interrupts our natural circadian rhythms, they're called, our natural sleep cycle. And it means that we might find it difficult to fall asleep because we've put coffee in and that's keeping us awake. We know it's a stimulant, and that kind of thing might affect us more. So the reason I started talking about synthetic hormones in our timeline is because what I see happens is our natural estrogen begins to drop off at menopause and our natural progesterone begins to drop off, is that these synthetic hormones stick around in our system and we become more sensitive to them, and our body finds it harder to clear these out of the system. So they've been hanging around in the liver for a long time, waiting for us to do something to clear them. So we might do a cleanse or something that helps the body clear these things out of our system, and that can be really helpful. So I get lots of women ultimately onto something like I work with a 10-day cleanse, which is amazing. I work with some liver herbs. They're different from my homeopathy, but they help tone the liver and help the liver let go of some of the toxicity, some of the things that we hang on to. And for women at menopause, it's the synthetic hormones that we really need to let go of because they can be very aggravating. So if we're getting surges of anxiety as well, either on waking or as we go to bed, again, that's often synthetic hormones in the system that we need to clear. And there are lots of ways of doing that. One of the things that I love to increase melatonin in the body is a product. It's called Apothecary, and it's a very concentrated cherry juice, and it's a sour cherry juice, and it's particularly effective. It's very high in what we call the ORAC value, so it's antioxidant capacity. And this sour cherry juice actually sets the gut into producing a certain probiotic or gut flora that is the precursor to the brain producing melatonin. So melatonin is produced in the pineal gland. And this is a little gland that sits, it's our third eye if you want, sits up here in the forehead. And that releases melatonin. And the melatonin helps us slip peacefully into sleep. And it helps us stay asleep. And what I find with the sour cherry juice is that it improves the quality of our sleep. So we may not necessarily sleep for longer, but we feel more rested from it. And we feel more restored from it. And it's the same with the magnesium as well, getting magnesium into our life. So we absorb magnesium better through the skin. And for many women, they've been taking a magnesium supplement because they've heard it's good. And it's actually not really doing much because we actually absorb the magnesium better through the skin. So they'll get onto the Better You spray that's easily available in the health food store. Or there are other brands around for sure, or get onto using Epsom salt baths on a regular basis. And for Epsom salt baths, think about using 1 kilo of Epsom salts a week. So whether you have 1 bath a week and put in that kilo of Epsom salts, many people don't use enough, they just use a handful, need a little bit more. Or you have baths maybe 4 times a week with that 250 grams of Epsom salts or 500 grams of Epsom salts. So Epsom salts, magnesium helps us relax. It helps us relax muscle. So any cramps, any discomfort, etc. at bedtime. A lot of women talk about having restless legs. I might introduce magnesium. I may also introduce zinc. Zinc can be a very good supplement or something to add into your diet. A handful of raw pumpkin seeds will give you enough zinc. That can be implicated in restless legs as well. So yes, we can often have been a really good sleeper and then the menopause has started disrupting our sleep. And a great question, will we always suffer from bad sleep just because it's happened in menopause? Well, for me, I did have disrupted sleep. I certainly had hot flushes at some point and sweats. Again, as a homeopath, I'm asking questions. You just get hot flushes. and you get heat in the system, or do you also get sweats? So I need to know how that is for you. And that definitely disrupted my sleep for a period of time, and I would sleep on a towel. And yes, I went through the bit of flipping the duvet off and flipping the duvet back on and being woken up by it. But all of these symptoms, insomnia, heat in the system, all belong to the liver when we're talking about organs. And especially things like hot flushes which rise up. So they tend to start in the chest or the center of the body and rise up and heat your face. And that generally is a need for us to detox the liver, to cleanse the liver. And there's lots of ways in which we can do this. We can start with skin brushing. So that's brushing your skin with a natural bristle brush in the morning before a shower or before you have your Epsom salt bath in the evening. And that stimulates the body to clear its toxins, particularly the skin. You can do something really simple, like in the morning when you wake up, have hot water with half a squeezed lemon in it, and that will stimulate the liver to start its work at the beginning of the day. We can eat certain foods which help the liver produce the bile, particularly, that helps us digest fats. So useful foods like artichoke, asparagus, radish, these can stimulate the liver to do its work. The green leafy vegetables, particularly things like rocket, the bitter foods, the bitter salad vegetables, these help stimulate the liver to do its work, and in doing that they'll help it clear toxicity from its system. I'm really into superfoods, so I might encourage women to have a superfood like Craxel chlorella or blue-green algae, which really helps the liver cleanse and detox. And then when the liver's let go of some of these synthetic hormones, we slip into sleep more easily. So what I found, I did a lot of cleansing at menopause. What I found that post-menopausally I would still have the occasional night. There were no more hot flushes, no more sweats, but I would still have a night where I would wake at 2 in the morning and then suddenly be wakeful for a really long time. And what's really, really helped me has been CBD oil. And I go to a particular company, they're an American company called CTFO, and I like them because they have great certification for all their products. So I can see that it has no THC in it, which is, I don't want THC because that's the bit that's psychoactive, and I don't want that in it, but I do want the benefits of the CBD oil. And I like that particular product because it's set in hemp oil. It's not necessarily set, there's all sorts of ways in which we can prepare this, and it's what we call full spectrum. And that's made a massive difference to my sleep postmenopausally. I can honestly say that in 10 months I've had 2 nights where I've been wakeful, and both those I can put down to food that I'd eaten. That was not organic food, and it probably had quite a lot of pesticides in it. And in both instances, I just finished a 10-day cleanse on superfoods, and then I'd had some food which wasn't particularly healthy food. It wasn't bad food, but it wasn't particularly healthy food. It was, both times I was out in a restaurant. One time was Vietnamese, and it was nice food, but it probably had something in it that was a little bit pesticide laden, and so I was wakeful that night. But I've been really wowed by that. That's been amazing. So are there foods or certain foods that make hot flushes worse? Yes, there are certain things which stimulate the liver, and unfortunately they're often the things that we really love. So sugar, wine, coffee, tea, any of the stimulating foods. And I found early on in menopause that I couldn't have rosé, and it took me a long time to learn that rosé is very stimulating for the adrenal glands, and so is red wine. So I stopped drinking red wine for years and years and years, maybe 6 years or something like that. And it's only post-menopausally I actually enjoy a glass of red wine much more. And what I find if I drink white wine is certainly if I drink more than a couple of glasses, I notice it affects my memory. So it's about looking at these things and seeing how it affects you. So things that stimulate the adrenal glands. Cheese might be another one for some people, and these are common things that cause headaches for us as well. So I cut out those, and a really, really great tip that I give everybody is where you can go over to natural wines. So natural wines are naturally grown and naturally produced. An organic wine is organically grown but not necessarily naturally produced. So it may have additives like sulfites in it. Now sulfites are an absolute classic for waking you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning after a glass of wine, it shows that your liver's struggling. So cut out rosé, cut out red wine, and really think about going over to a natural wine and see if that makes a difference. I try to reduce refined carbs, refined sugar, white foods, white rice, etc., because these are harder for the body to metabolize. So you may well find that a big meat meal in the evening means that you wake in the middle of the night, and you used to be able to digest it, but now that's too heavy. So maybe move that meal to earlier in the day and have a lighter meal in the evening. That can make a big difference to you hot flushes. Is there anything you can do to prevent your sleep being disrupted by the menopause? I think I've kind of answered that really. Some tips that I wrote, and do go and have a look at the Soak and Sleep website, because I've written some tips on there as well. And it's good to know that as adults we should be getting between 7 and 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep a night. So this is a goal that we're working back towards, and I have to say I'm really glad 6 years post-menopause that I have that sleep now. It makes a big difference. As we age, we do need less sleep. So once we're over the age of 70, we really only need about 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And your body does need this time to recover and rest and recharge. And if we don't get that time, then parts of us are going to be stressed, and parts of us are going to start to complain. So what have I written here? I've written a bit about Epsom salt baths. Yeah, one thing I wanted to say is it's rare to say to meet a client that doesn't need magnesium. So that is really big. Someone asks, I think I'm going through the perimenopause. Is there anything that I can do now to help me when I do transition into the menopause? It's a big question. The first sign for me of perimenopause, of things changing, was me getting irregular blood sugar. And I just was walking on the street one day and I felt really rangy, really unbalanced. And I went to see my homeopath, and in fact a combination remedy, it's called Female Balance, that really set things right for me. And I didn't really need to address, so I was probably about 42 then, I think. Possibly I was 46, but I went to see the homeopath and that made a big difference. And I didn't really need to address my hormones again for several years, which was great. So I do recommend looking at that. There's a really fantastic, I haven't brought it into this, but there's a really great, easy to get, because homeopathy is a fine art. We ask a lot of questions to get to the right remedies. There are lots and lots of solutions. You've got remedies that a lot of people have heard of, like sepia, pulsatilla, lachesis. We use these a lot at menopause. We use combination remedies as well. There might be some more, we might be treating something like depression, nervousness, so we might be looking at those types of remedies. We've got remedies for all sorts of things. But a really easy, almost over-the-counter product that you can go and get is by the Australian Bush Essence Company, and it's called Woman Essence. And I say to many women, just get onto that for 3 or 4 months, take 7 drops AM and PM, and just see what difference it makes. It costs about £12.50, I think. Really worth trying, and you can take that alongside other medication. So I think something I just want to add is that the kind of work that I do can be used alongside other health choices. So I have many women that come in on HRT or bioidentical or body-identical hormones, and they've still got a couple of symptoms that they want to address, and I can help them with what I do. Alongside the medication that they're on, and that goes for other types of medication as well. Many people think I can't do that because I'm doing this, and it's so not true. There's an amazing synergy, and we can work together. And I love working with other health practitioners as well, towards optimum health for my clients. So let's see what we've got here. Where would I get natural wine, please? I'd have a search online. Lots and lots of good wine cellars now do it. There are natural wine companies. If you live in London, and when we're out of lockdown, there's a really nice restaurant called Terroir, which is in William the Fourth Street behind the Strand, and you can go and sample some natural wines. But go and ask a good off license or a good wine cellar if they've got any natural wines, and maybe go to a tasting. Ask a lot of these places do tastings. So when we're back after lockdown, see if you can go to your natural wine tasting as well. Makes a huge difference. I think even Majestic Wine has some natural wines. They're not so big, and you also might find a vineyard that you like and just order from them. Why not? Let's see if I've got any other questions that have come in. We're nearly at time, so I'll just see. Yes, great question here. A lack of sleep is making me feel anxious about going to bed at night. Is there anything I can do to help me feel less worried? Again, I really like the flower essences. They're really easy to use. They are what they say on the bottle. So, something like Calm and Clear from the Australian bush essences is really nice. I personally take the apothecary juice that I was talking about. I pop this into some warm water before bedtime and just have a calming drink. Give yourself time. Definitely, switching off the Wi-Fi can help. Give yourself a bit of time away from the screen, away from the TV. That will really help in terms of anxiety. Creating a darkened space. Lots of people don't realise that light triggers us to be more wakeful. So, it might be that you get a blackout blind behind your curtains or thicker curtains. That can make a tremendous difference. Having quiet, some people like a little bit of noise as well, a little bit of white noise. And I think I share it. I'm fairly sure I share it on the Soak and Sleep page. A really beautiful piece of music that you can get on YouTube, which was written to make you fall asleep. And when I was writing, I think it was when I was writing the Soak and Sleep blog, I was actually at a friend's house, and a cat that she had in the house would come up and sit and crawl, kind of walk in front of the screen every so often while I was working. But when I was writing this particular piece and playing that music, she came up and fell asleep on the keyboard. So, working with some nice music might really help as well. I think we're at time. If there's any last minute questions, I'll just have a quick look at the screen. And I'll just have a look at my notes here. Oh, a really nice one. One last question. Is it better to sleep in bed alone rather than with a partner? I know many women I certainly struggled with that for a while, and it took me a long time, I think, to recognise and own up to what was actually going on, and to talk to my partner about it, and to say that, I just wanted to sleep in the other room where it was cooler. And that didn't mean to say that we couldn't spend time in bed together, but sometimes we both got a better night's sleep if we slept in separate spaces. And I think one of the things that I really got out of Meg's Menopause conference when I spoke there was a fantastic speaker who came up and talked about the need sometimes to joke about what we're going through, to make it something that we share. And that was really good, because it is something that we need to talk about and something that we need to share in order to be understood. So, again, there's some great remedies we can use in the morning if we're feeling irritable. One of my favourites is called Nux vomica. We usually take it for a hangover, for eating too much, that kind of thing. And that can be a fantastic homeopathic remedy for those days when you feel ratty because you haven't had enough sleep. So there's lots of resources. And, you're all here because you know about Soak and Sleep. And they have, some fantastic, I know they have some great linen, which, good quality linen really helps with how you get into bed. So, one of the things I like to do is buy good quality linen because I like to treat myself around bedtime. And, I also use incense. That's another thing that can be really nice to use. So, yeah, it's making bedtime special can be a great way in. So thank you all for listening in, and thanks for your questions. It's really great, and it's good to be here. And thanks to host Soak and Sleep for asking me on. and I'm sure they'll be there to answer any other questions you've got. So thanks for attending and have a good evening. Bye.